Now, Andreas has talked about local, decentralized, renewable energy, which is a key part of the transition to a low-carbon economy. What I'm going to talk about is how, at a national scale, we can actually create the demand for these local, decentralized, renewable energy initiatives. And the more buying power we can create, thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people wanting to join cooperative energy, the more demand there is for local projects, the more local projects will get set up and financed. So, my talk's really about creating this entire cooperative energy economy, and I'm going to make two big points which I'd like you to sort of think of throughout the talk. Number one is that there is no reason why cooperatives can't be very big indeed in the energy sector. I think at least as big, for example, as cooperatives are in banks, because cooperatives solve so many problems in the energy chain. They solve problems for consumers when they're buying their energy. They solve problems for local communities who might be resisting, not in my backyard, renewable energy. And they're also a great solution for energy saving initiatives beyond the household level. So cooperatives are potentially massive. And the second message I want to leave you with is that we have the means now to make that happen. We do not need to wait for many politicians to change policy. We have the means to create a cooperative energy economy. Which one is the
right one?
The right one. Great. So, let me just explain a little bit more what I mean about creating this national demand. So this is a rather simplistic picture of how the energy system works, and I'm going to be referring mainly to European Union countries. I'm not as familiar with how they work in other countries outside the EU. But in all cases, you've got generators, which are in most EU countries. It's a semi-liberalised market. In other words, it's possible for independent generators to establish themselves, renewable generators, for example, and to sell their power to the grid. So it's semi-liberalised. We've then got transmission and distribution. That's the means by which the power is taken from the generator into people's homes. That's a natural monopoly. There is no real impact that cooperatives can make on that. They tend to be regulated private or public monopolies. But it's on the supply side where we in cooperative energy are active. That's our role. We are the people who are selling gas and electricity to households in the UK, and we then buy our power from independent generators on the left-hand side of that diagram. So the more customers we have, the more power we need to buy, the more we are creating demand for the local projects. Now, what's interesting about the supply side in most European countries is that it's pretty liberalised. Nearly every European country allows its citizens to switch energy provider. But the more mature that liberalised market, the more it's been in existence, the less switching activity takes place. So, for example, in the UK, we've had a liberalised retail market for 12 years, a bit more than 12 years. Switching volumes are at an all-time low. 99% of supply is still with the big six utilities, the big six suppliers. The spread between a supplier's cheapest tariff and its most expensive tariff is wider than ever. It's £300 for one supplier in the UK. And the amount that a customer could save by switching has never been greater. And yet, we've had this liberalised market with price comparison sites and tools available to make it easy to switch. So what's going on? There's a paradox. Well, what's going on is that choice has gone to the extreme of confusion. We've got 4,000 tariffs in the UK if you combine payment methods, fuel types, online or offline, fixed or variable, tracker, you name it. 4,000 tariffs, but the actual underlying product is identical from one household to the next. The electrons that come through the plug, the gas that comes into the stove is the same from one household to the next. So liberalisation has created proliferation and confusion, and so people are completely disengaged. We've got a polarised market in which a small number of people can be bothered to shop around every year to make sure they're on the best deal, and the vast majority, and I'm sure we're all thinking privately which category we fit into, the vast majority probably don't do that. They have perhaps slightly more important things to do on a Friday night, and they're on very mediocre tariffs at best. So the cooperative solution is to offer cooperative principles in a retail product. So when we set up 2 years ago, when we started trading, before we did the public launch, we did lots of market research, and we mapped the original cooperative principles onto what an energy product would look like, and that's what the market research was telling us would go down well. So, and this is how it's manifested itself now in 6 pledges. The first is to be consistent in your pricing. Yes, be competitive, of course. This is a very price-driven market, but don't be erratic, and don't exploit the customer when they turn their back on you and forget about you. So be consistent and win the customer's trust. So we don't promise to be the cheapest, but we do promise to be amongst the cheapest year in, year out. Secondly, keep things simple. Well, we offer our customers a very simple choice. You either buy our Pioneer tariff or not, because it's either the right price for you or not. And keeping that choice very simple means that a very high number of people actually say yes, rather than say, maybe, I'll come back later. And so keeping it simple is very important. We also have one unit rate. We don't have a kind of tariff which becomes cheaper the more energy you use, which is quite common and is actually counterintuitive to actually reward excessive consumption with a low unit rate. So we keep our unit rate the same, which I guess gives people the simplest incentive to save energy. Thirdly, of course, we need to provide excellent customer service, because if we didn't, our very vocal members and customers would soon tell us about that. So, this is a hygiene factor, of course. I don't think people really switch energy provider for the customer service experience. I think they're entitled to take that for granted, but it is a part of our pledges. The fourth thing is to try and demystify the relationship between the retail price for energy and what we read in the papers about the wholesale price. That's a very baffling relationship, and it's to do with the way energy is bought ahead. It's to do with having to hedge. And so the headlines you might read in the papers about wholesale costs going up or down don't immediately translate into changes in retail prices. Now, for a shareholder-owned business, that's immediately going to lead to the suspicion that actually really what's happening is some profiteering. Really what's happening is that shareholders are benefiting from this lag. But in a consumer-owned cooperative, ultimately, no one else other than the customers own the profit. So in good years, when wholesale costs will go down, and the profit made by the supplier will be higher, the customers get that back in a divvy. And we've already done 2 profit share distributions in the last 18 months, which really reinforces the cooperative principle. Okay. The fifth one is ensure our energy is low carbon, and this is where we're buying from local renewable energy co-ops of the kind that Andreas was talking about, and I've already mentioned sharing our profits with our members. We have a low carbon pledge, which means that we will promise always to have a mix of power that's less than half the national average. So it's a continuous improvement target, because that national average is always coming down. And this chart just shows the figures for the last year for which we have data. It shows the big 6 in blue and the carbon content of their electricity. It shows the target that we set ourselves, which is in green, but actually so far all our energy has been renewable, and long may that continue. It's just that we're not making that a a permanent pledge. We'll always favour renewable, we'll always bend over backwards to buy renewable, but the most important thing for us is to keep our prices competitive, and we just don't want to be dependent on just one technology. This is a picture of our latest community energy project. I love the kind of, it's almost like a spaceship. It's the evening before, the night before the wind turbine was erected at a site called Great Dunkilns in the Forest of Dean, which is in the Mid-Counties trading area. And we buy the output from that now functioning turbine. It's a single turbine. It will power about 300 homes. But the more projects like that we can buy from, the more we can help to create this cooperative energy economy. On the left-hand side, I've listed 3 of the means by which you can actually invest in projects like this. There is a new emerging investment opportunity for people to actually buy shares or loans in these renewable energy projects. The longest established is speaking a bit later this morning, Energy for All. They have about 12 projects that they've helped to set up. The newest on that list is Abundance, who supported Great Dunkilns. I didn't want to finish the talk without mentioning Energysaving, because it's one thing to have a cooperative energy supplier like ourselves and cooperative energy generation, but I think there's also a very key ingredient to the low carbon economy, which is helping everyone save energy. And there are some new emerging businesses which are helping households organise energy saving measures in bulk rather than at the individual household level. Because when it comes to refurbishing and cladding and putting exterior insulation on a house, this is often best done efficiently at a neighbourhood level rather than at an individual household level. And so again, later in this strand, we've got the Energysaving Co-op talking about their business model. And we work closely with the Energysaving Co-op. So finally, I just wanted to say that, as I said at the beginning, it really is, I think, in our hands to create this cooperative energy economy. As consumers, we can all decide to switch to a supplier which supports community energy projects. The choice is there in every or many EU countries. In Belgium, there's EcoPower, which you'll hear about, I think, a bit later on, for example. So we have the power to switch to cooperative energy suppliers. And in most cases, you will find, in doing so, you will be saving money because of what I said about how the market has actually started to work against consumers. Over 3/4 of people who come to us save money. And of those who switch, they save on average £135. So that's, you know, that's an obvious thing for people to want to do. And then we buy from the renewable energy co-ops that are being set up all around Europe. I need to finish there. Thank you very much.